What is up, guys? It's Dan the Man, and today I'm back with the last round of the May Wolf Chess Tournament held by Deepak Aaron, and I currently have a score of 2.5 out of 3 after a very wild and unpredictable and low-key, just a insane game from round 3, as you guys may have watched. I only posted it now because I had some technical difficulties with filming and uploading it. For some reason, the audio wasn't there when I uploaded it to YouTube, so I had to try a few methods, but eventually figured it out. You can read the comment in the comment down below. But anyway, hope the issue doesn't appear again. And okay, I'm gonna get rid of e4. I'm playing Andrew Jiang. He, you guys may know already. He's a FIDE master, rated around 2300. He's about to go into high school, so he's essentially a prodigy teenager who's a FIDE master, and one of the top players in the state. So yeah, I knew what I was getting myself into, and I was going in with the mindset that I'm gonna lose, but I might as well put up a fight. So yeah, let's go ahead and see what happened and jump straight in. So as you guys have seen already, Andrew opens the game with e4, and my brain hadn't had time to transition from game 3 to game 4, so he already has that advantage too. I go e5, and he thinks for a couple seconds. He goes knight c3. He wasn't sure what his second move would be, but he ends up going with a Vienna game, knight c6, and here he plays the move bishop to c4, and then I reply with knight f6. He goes d3, and then I choose to go bishop b4 here. Usually I go bishop c5 and sort of mirror his bishop, but I went bishop b4 because I'm interested in playing d5 at some point and pinning his knight. I thought would be a good strategy to do that. And that's exactly what happens. Andrew played knight e2 here, and I strike with d5. And here, after d5, we have a trade in the center, and then Andrew castled his king to safety. And here, Andrew seemed a little bit, aloof. He didn't move right away, even though I'm sure all these moves were natural to him. He was a little bit distracted. He wasn't moving right away, but that's fine because, I wasn't expecting to have a time advantage over him this early on. But, I don't know. He still has plenty of time to think throughout the whole game, but just something I noticed that I had an early time advantage, but that means absolutely nothing if you're playing Andrew Jiang, who's a freaking FIDE master. Anyway, after castling, I decided to trade on c3 and then retreat my bishop to e7. And here Andrew plays the move a4. Very logical move, perhaps getting some queenside space and opening a path for his bishop to go to a3, where it would be defended by the rook. So he's giving himself more scope, you could say. Here I castle, and here Andrew plays the move knight to g3. Now, his knight, he's preparing to go to e4, I think, from what I'm trying to decipher the move. I'm assuming the knight would be going to e4. And the top move here is actually to play the move king h8, which looks kind of mysterious at first, but the point is you're unpinning the f-pawn, and you're preparing to push it up to f5 and f4, where you'll gain some kingside space. But, to a human, this looks pretty weird to move your king to h8 for no reason. So, yeah, I don't think king h8 would occur to most of us as a first candidate move. So, I play the move bishop g5, and apparently that's wrong, but Andrew has to play the move a5 here, and I guess his idea is to maybe play a6 and sort of double the pawns. I don't know, that was apparently what he should have done, but here he went bishop a3, which isn't a bad move either, even though his computer says it's a miss. And he's attacking the rook, and I play the move rook e8 here. And here Andrew logically, as I said earlier, plays knight e4, and I am debating about whether to save the bishop on g5 or let the knight trade it off. And I end up, letting him take the bishop on g5. Which ended up being the best move. I didn't think bishop e6 was the best move, but apparently it is. And upon further inspection, if I move the bishop to e7, for instance, then white can have already starting to grow an advantage with queen h5, attacking the f7 pawn, and there's not really a great way to defend the pawn. I don't really want to go bishop e6 and have him double my pawns on the e-file, so g6 would be one of the options I could play, but that's actually not a great move at all, because after queen h6 here, white's threatening to trade bishops on e7 and then play the move knight g5, and I'll be under a serious checkmating attack. And yeah, as you can see by the bar, Andrew would be +3 in this case, and I would go on to lose very quickly. So, unknowingly, bishop e6 was the best move. I didn't know that over the board, and we actually trade. And here, and I actually thought I had made a mistake here. Andrew played the move knight c5, forking the rook and the b7 pawn. So I thought, I'm like, dang, I'm going to already be losing a pawn this early. But apparently, it's still fine for me. And I have to play the move rook to h6. But I play this move rook to g6, which isn't as good, but I guess it's fine. Rook h6. If white were to go pawn grabbing here, I can either save my queen, but I can also just try to go for a draw right away. And if white takes my queen, it would be a perpetual bishop takes h2, the king would go into h1, I'd move my bishop, and the king would go back, and we would repeat. But Andrew wouldn't fall for that, most likely. So I could have also went queen to c8 here, and which would be the best move for me to have a small advantage. And after Andrew would save his knight, I could go bishop f4 here, and this is stronger than when the queen was on d8, because the queen actually is eyeing at the king's side, even though it doesn't seem so. So if Andrew plays g3 here, all of a sudden my queen hops into h3, which it couldn't do on d8, and I'm actually starting to launch a checkmating attack, which is unstoppable. So we can't go g3 here. His best reply is h3, but then this would be a great find for me over the board against a titled player. I would have played rook takes h3, and he can't take because my queen and bishop would be too much for him to handle, and he would have to give up a bunch of material. Funny enough, he has to decline the rook sacrifice, move his rook, and then I'd save my rook, and the game would go on. But yeah, that would be quite an insane variation that we would go into. So that was the best way that I should have played, but I go rook g6 here, and he still grabs the pawn, but instead of going queen c8, again, the queen c8 is the best move. I go queen f6 here, which isn't the ideal spot for the queen. Queen c8 again is best here. It's just best because it eyes at the king's side. It sort of participates from a distance from the king side. So again, if the knight were to save itself, here I can play this absolutely ridiculous move, bishop to d2, which if you play that over the board, your opponent reports you for cheating. Even if you play that online, your opponent reports you for cheating. That's such a ridiculous move for a lot of reasons. Like, you're just offering your bishop en prise to the queen, and it's just such a weird move. And if the queen takes, you sacrifice another piece to open the king, and after the king takes, you play queen g4. And the whole point of sacrificing two pieces is to go for a draw. Now, after bishop d2, another move I was considering was okay, what if white doesn't want to go for a draw? What if they play knight e4, defending their c3 pawn and hitting your bishop? And it seems like you have to go back. No, you can actually sacrifice your bishop anyway, playing bishop takes c3. This is just weird, phenomenal stuff. It's all because of my pressure on the king's side. If white were to take this piece, then all of a sudden I'm winning with queen h3. And it's pretty hard for him to stop mate on g2. He can't go queen f3 because the rook's pinning the pawn. So he'd have to play a move let's say g3 here. And after g3, rook h6. And it's pretty hard to defend the h2 pawn. In fact, you can't. So you'd have to create a flight square for your king to run to. And checking is still winning for black, but it's not nearly as good as the best move, which is knight d4. And what knight d4 does is that it prevents the king from escaping to e2. So now I have the threat of playing queen takes h2 and queen h1 mate. Whereas if I took first, the king would have the option to run to e2. So yeah, very crazy and very tactical stuff that I could have played against Andrew, but instead I play queen f6, which isn't a horrible move, but again, queen c8 I wish I would have found, because it would have put some distant pressure on his king side. So yeah, after queen f6, he plays knight c5 here. I go bishop f4, and now it's not as scary because he just plays the move g3. And although it looks like I have some sort of attack building up, it's not. He's perfectly fine here. There's no danger to his king at all. I go queen f5, trying to go to maybe h3, and then play rook h6, but that's just a distant thought. He plays the move queen f3, and he's preparing to play queen g2 if necessary. I go queen h3, but instead of going queen g2, he just plays the move king h1 here, and perfectly reasonable move. Here he had 29 minutes, and I try to go aggressive. I play h5. I'm like, I got to do something against Andrew. I got to be a bit bold here, knowing the caliber of a player he is. So after going h5, I had 39 minutes, and maybe with h5 I can play h4 and maybe open the h-file or something. I don't know, but this is totally fine for him, even though it looks like I have an attack. He plays queen g2, and I can either just retreat my queen backwards, but I instead take, because I can brag to everyone that I got into an endgame against Andrew. I can brag that I went into an endgame down a pawn and didn't lose quicker. So after king takes g2, now Andrew's fine because he's just up a pawn in the endgame, and his king is even safer than it was before because there are no queens on the board. So after king takes g2, I go h4. But although this is a pseudo threat, there's no threat at all. It's basically not doing anything. The pawn's well defended. So he goes rook a and a to b1. I take, and then bishop e3. He brings his rook down to b7, attacking the c pawn and the a pawn. I trade his knight for my bishop, and then I played the move knight d8. And here he's essentially totally winning. In the game, I thought he couldn't take on c7, which he did. In the game, I thought he couldn't take on c7 because I would have this fork with knight e6, hitting his rook and hitting his bishop. And if he can't go rook c6 here because I would have knight f4, checking his king and opening an attack on his rook, which is undefended. So I'm like, okay, if he goes knight e6, I would be winning a piece, essentially, right? In fact, but then I realized that he can play this move rook takes a7, which is the only move to keep an advantage here. And I'm essentially forced to I'm basically forced to trade rooks here, and because if I take his bishop, nothing's guarding my rook, and I would just be down a bunch of material. If my rook were defended on a8, then the tactic, you could say, would work, but it's not, so the tactic doesn't work. So anyway, after rook takes c7, I realized that and switch gears to play rook a6. I'm giving everything I got here, doing everything I can here. So he goes rook e7, very nice move, preparing to go rook e8 check and pin my knight to my rook, where I'll be very cramped. And my knight's stuck defending f7, so I can't really move it. And this is just a very abysmal position for black. I do go knight e6, and I'm fully expecting him to take on f7 in the future after he saves his bishop. And after rook f8, I thought he could, play this move rook takes knight, which is a cool little tactic to simplify the game here. He sacrifices the exchange, but then, as you may notice, the bishop can take the rook here. And in that case, he would just be up after I take the bishop back. He would be up 2 pawns here. So, he ended up going bishop b4 here. I go rook f8, but he doesn't take the knight. He goes rook d7, which I think is more powerful because he discover attacks my rook, but also once I save my rook, he can take on f7. And that's exactly what happens. He has dominating rooks here. He's up 2 pawns, and the rest of the game is pretty self-explanatory. I try to fight on, but he's up 4 pawns against me. I do everything I can. We simplify a bit more. He's up 3 pawns. I managed to win another pawn. I try my best here, but it's only a matter of time before all my pawns are gone, and he's just up 3 pawns in a totally winning endgame. But, I can tell people that I survive more moves against Andrew if I keep playing on rather than resigning, even though I know he can win this in his sleep, this position. But, I want to prolong the game, so I can tell people I survived against Andrew longer. So after rook b6 check, I want king c5, and I'm actually setting up a kind of a sneaky stalemate threat. If he, let's say, tries to defend his pawn by staying on the 6th rank, then I would have played rook takes c5 here, rook takes c4 here, and he can't take because it would actually be a stalemate. But he can just move his king away, and I'd, move my rook back to h4 probably, and, he's still up 2 pawns. Like, even though he's only up 2 pawns and not 3 pawns, it doesn't matter. He's still completely winning. But that was just a cheeky little threat I was setting up that, playing some real hope chess here. But he doesn't even go into that line. He just plays rook b5 check, and now the stalemate threat isn't even valid anymore. I go king c6, and I'm just going to fast forward here because you guys can predict the outcome at this point. It's pretty much hopeless for me. I try to keep the game going, but his pawns are too much. He advances his king, checks my king back, and after the move h7, I officially resign against Andrew Jiang because I cannot prevent rook check from happening, and then a promotion, and I'd have to sacrifice my rook. And at this point, I didn't feel like wasting his time. I knew it was hopeless beyond comprehension, so yeah, I ended up resigning. But, I'm still happy with the tournament performance. We had a final score of 2.5 out of 4. A very great tournament, in my opinion. And, in fact, I ended up gaining around 70 points from this tournament. So my rating is around 1880 now, which is the highest it's ever been. So, yeah, that's a very good outcome for me based on the playing field and all of the opponents I've played who were higher rated. So I think that was a very good tournament for me, even though, I didn't end up winning, any money or anything, but that's beyond the point. I gained a lot of rating, and I played in a very competitive section, so I'm, really happy with the results here. And, this last game was kind of expected. So if we look at the accuracy here, Andrew basically did everything essentially perfectly. He played at a 94 accuracy, and I didn't play that bad myself. I played at 88.2. And this is what happens when you play against stronger and stronger players, is that they just play better. It's kind of obvious, and they don't, let up the advantage to the other player. So that was sort of a one-sided game, as you can see by the graph. The white eval bar just slowly grew until it was too much for me, and I never really had a shot. So yeah, kind of self-explanatory here. Had a great tournament. If you like content like this, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment, let me know what you thought, and have a great rest of your day or night. Bye.